Welcome back, everybody. So glad that you could come and visit again. In my absence, your absence, our absence, while I've not been recording, I have been working. I've been making a couple of changes, and I built something just because I could. Now, can't remember how many episodes back it was, but I had a little bit of a problem with the stone tower, with the symmetry there. And other people kind of agreed with me. So I've gone back to work on this little stone tower to try and see if it does look better with symmetrical towers. So this is going to be the first glance I'm going to give you of it, so that you can tell me if you think it looks better. Now, as you can see, I've taken away the little sideways gate. It was only ever meant to be there temporarily, and I do think this looks better uninterrupted, but we still need a way out. So here we go. We have a sneaky way out. I will call this my my sally point. You know, if you're besieged or whatever else, you've got to have a little secret exit where all your knights and their horse come charging out. Hurrah! Crash, bang, wallop, and get all of the people who are besieging them. And that little banter was just long enough for me to get far enough away to show you we now have symmetrical towers. And yeah, I have to admit that I like it much better. It doesn't have this incomplete feeling anymore. And I'm going to try and zoot up here. Whoa, turbo jump. Ouch, crunch. Random jumping. And there you go. There you can see I have now got 4 side towers in addition to the huge central one. And yeah, immediately I like it more. It has a more balanced feel to me, and now it feels how I would say probably castle walls probably would feel. Yeah, it didn't take me too long to add the 2 extra towers. It was more a question of remembering how to do it than anything else. But I'm quite glad that I did it. I'm more pleased with this build now than I was. There was always a sort of question mark in my mind about that build, which was sort of, do I leave it like this because it's the blueprint, or do I go with my gut instinct and make it how I think it should look? And a couple of people kind of, maybe decided, I'm thinking here of Atelier ED and of Mulberry Man. They both sort of made me think, yeah, it's my build. It doesn't matter if I used a blueprint in the beginning, I can still take ownership of this build and make it how it suits me. So thank you guys for all the advice and encouragement there. I've took it on board and did something with it, and I'm much happier now with that particular building. I've also I did ask, what further would people like to see doing, seeing as I've basically gone through most of the all of the blueprint builds, and I was basically told, well, just keep building. And I'll be honest, I've been going through a bit of a slump as far as creativity is concerned, and I've been thinking, what do I build? So I find usually when I try and build something, it's always something quite big and elaborate. And I thought, well, maybe that's why I'm feeling overwhelmed, because I take on these massive projects, and sometimes that can be a bit hard. So I thought, why not do something smaller? So I've tried to build just a little medieval style what I would call the half-timbered buildings. We've got some beautiful examples here where I live and in towns close to where I live as well. And I absolutely adore walking down the old cobbled streets, which I've tried to replicate here, and looking at these genuine half-timbered buildings that were around when King Henry VIII was beheading his wives. So it's quite a remarkable bit of history to be able to, you know, lay your own hands on and be part of. So I wanted to sort of small scale recreate that. So as I say, I've tried to do this as a sort of little cobbled walk, and I put decorative flowers and try to do the whole sort of almost Tudor style look. I found that to replicate the wattle and daub, which is what they use between the wood beams, I found that using the salt block gave the best sort of white look. And just as a little laugh around here, they did not have indoor toilets way back then. So you would have this little outside privy, if you would, throwing everything into a pot and then chucking it out the window. I'm presuming we were just slightly more upmarket than that, and gave us this little privy. And I've used one of these clay pots and put some water in it and made it look like, well, you know, a hole in the ground wherein one would do what one needs to do. I've also done this little chimney here, and I've again used the clay pot at the top to be the little chimney pot. Yeah, I wasn't sure if it would work, but when I did actually put it on, I thought, you know, it does work. We'll take us through the front door. And as you can see, it's a very, very compact little building. And I was just wondering how much utility you could get out of a compact building. And I've managed to get here a little sink. I've got my units. I've got shelves with food on them. I've put a death statue here to probably be, you know, your pot of soap or whatever it would be. I tried to use a straw bale shredded leaves as kind of sponge, but it seems to come out dark just there, which is a little bit disappointing, but you know. And there's the arc stone as a solid bar of soap, as opposed to, I suppose that would be lye soap, Lye. I'm not quite sure how it's pronounced. I think it's lye. And then here I've got, these are supposed to be like sort of hanging knives or whatever. And I used the fire pit here, and then I was wondering, can you rotate them? And you can. So I've got an upside down fire pit here, which I think gives a kind of good look to this little fireplace. And here we have just a little table where you will sit and eat at the end of a hard day's work, and probably do embroidery if you're a woman, or patch your shirts, clean your boots. Hard work in those days, non-stop. And then up here, I'm not entirely sure, I'm not entirely convinced that I like this. I like how these barred windows do this, but I'm not sure if it works overly well with the fence. It does and it doesn't work, if that makes sense. But I thought it's a nice way of creating a sort of small little upstairs space. You're utilising your roof space. And here you've got your little bookcases and obviously your beds. And this would be where you would have you'd put your clothing. You would store them in a chest as opposed to a sort of hanging wardrobe. You'd probably have your work clothes, and then literally you'd have your Sunday best, which would be your clothing that you would only wear when you would be going to church on a Sunday. It's very different from our modern plentiful times, I can quite imagine. But here we are, a very compact little build. It was fun to actually work within the constraints. All of this fits well within a 16 by 16 chunk. And if you want to know anything about chunks, then Atelier is definitely the channel you need to go look at, and he explains it far better than I ever could. But you can see that it starts here right against a claim line, and it's 16 blocks in from the edge of the claim line, and it ends at 16 blocks here, so it's 16 by 16, which, if my maths is correct, I think that's a 256 block footprint for this. And the house isn't even that big, because as you can see, I've got path going around it and that sort of thing. So it was very nice to work within such size constraints to try and see what you can fit in, because normally you it's go large or go home, isn't it? But no, in here we've managed to create a functional house with a dining room, a kitchen and a bedroom, with using hardly any space whatsoever. So yes, that pretty much is what I've been doing on this world in the interim. And there are some things that I wish, like for example with the barred window, I wish it would be the same colour as the cragwood. It's the same with the fence. It goes a lighter colour just by creating it into a fence. The slabs go a lighter colour just by being created into slabs. And then when you have your thatched, it's a much darker wood. So working within those constraints, I think this looks fine. It's just, to my eye, I would prefer to have the woods matching and that sort of thing. But then, you know, I kind of think this is a poor peasant's house, and I'm going to sort of develop this further and probably create a little bit of farmland here. And just behind here I've discovered there is, I don't know how deep a cave it is, but there is a little cave down here. So I'm going to explore that and maybe turn this into a little mine for this little, my imaginary farming family living here. I might even just have a little pigsy pen, because there's plenty of pigsies around here. And I've also built this in a location where there's the most astonishing cragwood trees. Mulberry Man was saying that there are giant trees of every sort, and it's possible I may have found one. That one's pretty magnificent. So some part of me is sort of thinking, because I don't really want to keep the teleporter there because it kind of spoils the whole medieval look of the little house, of maybe creating something inside this tree that would be all modern and sophisticated, almost as if time travelers are observing medieval England. So yes, this build, it's coming with a little bit of a storyline to it, and I quite like the idea of it having a storyline. It's something that I'm using to inspire myself, and with such beautiful scenery around me, you can see there's lots of the autumn trees here. It's a beautiful setting that I've found in order to tell this little story. So I'm letting you in at the very beginning of the story of my little medieval family, and I'm not entirely sure where I'm taking their story, but I think it's going to be a lot of fun for all of us to go on this little journey. So I want to thank you for walking around with me, taking a good look at my new little house and my new little build. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you like the idea of me using this environment to become a little bit of a storyteller. I'm not a tutorial sort of person. I'm quite happy to give advice, but there are people out there far better equipped than I am to actually do really, really good tutorials in how to play this. And I don't think that I need to be yet another person sitting here telling you the basics. I'm going to presume that you know the basics, that you might just be interested in trying to play the game and to try and see what you can do with the game. Is it just a build game? Is it just a farming game? Or what sort of game is this? And I wanted to sort of, yes, create a storyline, create a background. You know, who is going to live in a house like this? What are their daily lives going to be about? And as I develop this little plot of land, I will develop their story. So if you think that's a good idea, then like, share, subscribe if you like what I'm doing with my channel as well. And if you comment, let me know what you'd like to see. I'm very much open to suggestions. I enjoy other people's perspectives on what I do. If there's something that you see in one of my builds that you think, well, why don't you use this instead? Offer those suggestions. It's quite often I might look at it and think, oh, that's a jolly good idea. Or I might look at it and think, yeah, I see where you're coming from, but that's not what I was aiming for. But yes, thank you very much. And as we see the sun setting in our beautiful little area, we shall stand here by the fence and look out over our little pool of water and wonder what tomorrow will bring us. You know, I love you loads. Peace out, peeps.